just under 48 hours to go before voting starts in the 2020 US elections, I thought it would be a good idea to have a look at the possibility of Donald Trump winning the presidency yet again. The reason for that is in the 2016 election, Trump came from behind and surprised everyone, including many of the pundits who said he did not have a chance of winning. They believed Hillary Clinton would win, and their belief was based on national polling. But the way Trump had managed to win the election was in the Electoral College. So Clinton in 2016 had managed to win 48% of the national vote, while Trump achieved only 46% of that national vote. But when it came to the Electoral College, he was able to win. The Electoral College is based on 538 votes from delegates sent by each of the states based on the outcome of the election in those particular states. Based on that, Trump was able to take the majority of the votes in the Electoral College and win the election. Before I get into an analysis of where we're at in this year's election and Trump's narrow path to victory, it's important to understand why the Electoral College exists. The founding fathers of the United States had framed the Constitution to ensure that there were checks and balances on power. And one of the things that truly concerned them was the risk of a tyranny of the majority. That is, a populist leader coming to power with a majority of votes across the country, but not having the interests of all Americans at heart. In particular, they were concerned about what they saw across the Atlantic in France following the French Revolution, where mob rule dominated the system, and as we know, there were many horrors from the French Revolution, and they did not want to see something like that happen in the US. So they created the Electoral College. The delegates to the Electoral College are based on the populations of the state. So there's a formula to determine that. And so what you see is that a state like California is able to send 55 delegates to the Electoral College. Similarly, another large state like Texas is able to send 38 delegates to the Electoral College who will determine the presidency. And a small state like Alaska is able to send 3 delegates. Washington, D.C., which is not a state, is guaranteed the ability to send 3 delegates based on being equal to the number of the smallest state in the Union. Now, I've already color-coded this map showing the numbers of delegates to the Electoral College for you based on current polling, which shows that Biden would win the states that are colored blue, obviously, which would give him 217 votes in the Electoral College. Trump, colored red for the Republican color, would win 126 votes in the Electoral College. That means there are 195 Electoral College votes still in play, colored gray for you here. To be able to win the election, Biden needs to pick up 53 votes in the Electoral College. Trump needs to pick up 144. So if you're wondering why Trump and Biden are focusing on only a couple of states, they're focusing on the big states that could get them the votes they need to get over the line. You have to remember either candidate needs a minimum of 270 votes to be able to win the election. So what is Trump's path to victory? And it's a very narrow path, but here's why he's focusing on some key states. He's focusing, for example, on Pennsylvania, 20 votes in the Electoral College. Florida, 29 votes in the Electoral College. Texas is important with its 38 votes in the Electoral College. Arizona with 11. There's a good chance Trump will take North Carolina, 15 votes. He'll probably also take Georgia with 16 votes. So you see how it's starting to break down. But it's still going to be a very, very close election. It's unlikely Trump is going to win with the type of numbers that he had in 2016 in the Electoral College. It's probably going to become be very close. It's probably going to be a few votes in it. One particular poll by Trafalgar, which had picked Trump as winning the 2016 election, believes he will win between 270 and 280 votes in the Electoral College. That is going to be very, very close. So there's another concern that arises because of that. And that is the concern that the election result will not be accepted by one side or the other. Trump has already indicated that he won't accept a close election result. He's going to possibly claim election fraud based on the large number of postal votes that have occurred this year. Huge number of Americans have voted prior to the polls through the postal system. Their votes have already gone in and will be counted. And Trump is indicating he may not accept that. If it is very close, chances are the election is going to have to be determined by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court currently has a bench that is a majority of conservatives, and there is an expectation that they would probably find in favor of the Republicans, though I don't believe that that is necessarily the case, because they have to make their findings based in law, and it'll be an interesting determination to see how that turns out. But the other thing that we do need to be concerned about is the risk of violence following the election if it is close. A large number of Americans this year have been buying firearms, and more firearms are bought in election years than usually, believe it or not. This year it's been added to by the violence that we saw around the Black Lives Matter protests. More and more guns being bought in recent weeks. A majority of people buying guns have never bought guns previously, so there's an expectation there could be the system could fall into upheaval, civil unrest, violence, and that's something we're going to have to be concerned about and watch out for. All in all, it means we're in for an interesting next couple of weeks as we follow the electioneering in the US, as we see the result coming out from the popular vote, as we see the determination by the Electoral College, and what happens as a result. All I can say is fasten your seatbelt. It should be an interesting ride.